Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about the new Gourmande Girls palette. Now if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I have never reviewed a Gourmande Girls palette. And I'm gonna do another video that's more focused on this topic and I'll go more in depth with it. But I have found that over the last couple years of reviewing, enough brands have kind of dropped out of the market and just aren't producing anymore that I am kind of running out of brands to review. I have like my main three and really that's it. So I'm kind of on a search to find some more brands that I like. So one of the first palettes that I got was this new one. This is called Bleeding Hearts and it's from Gourmande Girls. And I've heard good things about this brand, so I thought I'll give it a try, see what I think. Now I did two looks with this palette. And the one that I'm wearing today, I feel like I used the palette kind of more how it's meant to be used. And that's not the right way to say it. The one that I did today was more of a kind of Valentine's look, which with a name like Bleeding Hearts and all these reds and purples, like it's kind of meant to be a Valentine's palette. Now, like the ColourPop palette that I reviewed last week, this is definitely more of an anti-Valentine's Day palette than it is like actual Valentine's Day. We've got names here like Nightshade Vein and Tainted Love and Ghost Whisper. So it is kind of like meant to be one of those anti-Valentine's fun backwards kind of a palettes. But I wanted to do a really Valentine's-y look with it. So I went ahead and started with this shade. It's called Kemanso. I did not look that up, so I don't know what that means, but it is a super bright and vibrant shade. I am always a little hesitant about new brands because I never know how their mattes are going to perform. I feel like with most shimmers, I can find a way to make it work for a look, but bad mattes are just so frustrating. So I was a little worried. However, the mattes that I used in this palette were great. So I was really impressed and really happy to find that it wasn't going to be difficult to work with as I was working with the mattes. This one, Kemanso, it was super pigmented and easy to blend out. It was so much more pigmented than I thought actually, that I ended up with a look where the eyeshadow was going way up to the top of my eyebrows just because I ended up blending out that much because there was so much pigment on the brush. And that's fine. I love to do a big look. So even though it wasn't what I was initially planning, I was pretty happy with the outcome. So that Kemanso, I sort of went in, I was aiming for the first third of my eyelid, but it ended up kind of like going up nearer to the brow bone, so kind of like over here, and also on the first third of my eyelid. And again, you can see that that is a super bright, super fun pigment. Then sort of on the rest of the lid, I used this bright red mist flower. And this was really bright red and it blended so well with that pink. So it was a pretty seamless transition. I really just loved the way it looked. And I ended up blending up here into the crease as well. So you can see the pink to red transition. I thought it was a lot of fun. Then I went in with this shade Nightshade Vein. And I did a couple different things with this. First, I sort of did the outer corner of my eyelid to kind of give it some shadow, some darkness, just sort of define my eye a little bit more, which I thought was really pretty. And then I sort of smoked it out quite a bit. I ended up, again, because this has so much pigment in it, I ended up with a little too much. So I had to go in with some remover and sort of like take out the sides because it was just too much and I didn't want it quite as all over my face as it ended up, but I feel like after I removed some it ended up in a pretty good place. I like this color over the red. It didn't show up as like a really pure purple, it was kind of like a muddier purple, which is okay because then once I got away from the red and was blending out, it really was like a nicer pure purple. So I think it still really works in the look and was really pretty. And then after I did that, I went in with this glitter shade Ghost Whisper. And I wanted that just to be in the middle of my lid, kind of where I had this red. And this one is really, really, really pigmented. I just had to rub once, and I really probably picked up enough for both of my lids. But I did end up doing each one separately. And then I also put like a teeny bit down below my lid. And then I was feeling like having fun, so I blended some Kemonso on this side, and then a little bit of the Nightshade Vein Purple on that side, just to give a kind of gradient across my eye on the lower lash line to match my upper lid. Then after all that, I was feeling like this look had a lot of red and a lot of darker colors. So I took just a little bit of this shimmer Wraith Light, and I did put it in the inner corners just to kind of brighten up that inside of my eye area, because this Kemonso, it's very pretty, but it is like a little bit darker of a shade, and I feel like for my eye shape, I don't know how other people's eyes do with this, but for my eye shape, if I have like a really dark color in that inner corner, it can make it look, I'm not sure how to say it, it can just make my whole eye look a little smaller, a little like closed, like squinty maybe. I don't even know. It's a very like grungy, cool look, but it's not the look that I'm going for most of the time. So I did put just a little bit of that in the inner corner. And then just because I felt like it needed a little bit more, I went ahead and took this shade called Midnight Morning. And this is like a matte shade, but it does have just a teensy bit of gold sparkle in it. But I went ahead and used it as just a liner on the outer third of my top and bottom lash line, just to kind of put a little bit more definition and darkness there. And I feel like it really makes my eyes look so big. And then for the second look that I did, this one really turned out to be, I guess, more anti-Valentine's, if that's how you want to think about it. But it really was not Valentine's themed at all. I was wearing like this pretty brown and turquoise skirt out to dinner, so I wanted to kind of incorporate those themes. So I didn't use any of the pinks, any of the reds, any of the purples. I used mostly some neutrals and some blues and greens. So when I started that look out, I went in with this shade Heartstring. This is the lightest shade in the palette, and I want that light shade kind of in the inner third of my eye, again like I was talking about earlier, to create some openness and make it not look so small. So I used this light gray shade, and it was so pretty. Like, it's a little bit lighter than my skin tone, so I feel like it really did open everything up and created a nice base. Because then from there, I used this shade Twilight Stem on like the outer third of my eye to kind of give some darkness. And ironically, I feel like using that on the outer third also kind of opens up my eyes and makes it look bigger. It's just a matter of where to put the darks and the lights on my particular eye shape. So I did that, and then I had some nice, like really kind of neutral, woodsy looking makeup because I had the gray and the green, super pretty. So then I decided to go in with this shade Hex Flower, and that turned out to be so gorgeous. Like, it's almost this aqua, and it's so shimmery. So I pretty much covered most of my lid with that shimmer, and it was like brilliant. I love these foily shimmers for how just shiny they are. So gorgeous. And then to kind of put something on the lower lash line because I wanted a little bit more color, I went in with this shade Tainted Love, and I did put that on the lower lash line, and that turned out in that particular look. It was sort of like a grayish but sparkly. I was expecting it to be just a tad more purple, but it really wasn't. It had more of like a very neutral character to it. Okay, now that I have shown you the two looks that I did with this palette, I want to go ahead and swatch the shimmers for you, because while I have used most of them now, I think Glass Heart is the only one I haven't used. It's always fun to see them. And then I can give you a little bit better idea of how they perform relative to one another. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started with this shade Wraith Light. Now, this was like a really light champagne when I was using it earlier in my inner corner. I think it worked out as a nice inner corner shade. Yeah. You see, like it has that slight tint of like, I guess it's a brownish goldish to it. But it's really pretty. It's super, super light, super, super bright. I like it. This one is called Glass Heart, and I'm going to show this to you. This is one of those shades that has like some different colors in the same shade. So I'm always wondering how these are going to turn out, you know, because it's not like completely obvious. Okay, so here's that shade. Oh wow, that's really pretty. Green, like a foresty green with like a rose gold shift to it. It's almost what I'm getting here. Maybe like a little bit purpley, more purple than a rose gold. I don't know exactly what to call that, but it's really, really gorgeous. And it spreads like a dream. Like you can see how much color I got on that. So pretty. Okay, now we'll do this shade Hex Flower. I love this shade. It's that same kind of nice foily, so pretty. So it gives so much color and just shines. Oh gosh, I love that. This is perfect for like an ocean look, which is funny from a Valentine's Day palette, but it's so pretty. It's a duochrome of like gold and like an aqua blue, maybe. Hard to say, but it's so pretty. Okay, now we'll do Tainted Love. This one has kind of big flakies, but I don't recall it being hard to work with. Well, sometimes I don't like big flaky shades, but yeah, this isn't bad. There we go. So see, on this swatch, it looks like a little more purple, but you can still see that gray neutral there when it's not like on its shiny bit. Like the duochrome is giving kind of a purple blue, but you can see underneath of it how it has that grayish character to it. Okay, let's swatch this one, Ghost Whisper. Look how much pigment that is. That's so crazy to me. Oh, see? This is the kind of shimmer that just like gives me the chills. It just spreads so nicely. It just is so thick and immediate, and like you could just use it on your eye. Like, I'm done. It's so gorgeous. This one doesn't have any shift or shimmer to it. It is just that like scarlet red. Okay, and very last, this isn't actually a shimmer. This is a matte, but it does have just a little bit of gold shimmer in it. So I want you to see how that looks and that there is some gold shimmer actually in that matte. Wow, and so you can see here what good quality the mattes are in this palette. A lot of mattes, if you just like take a little bit and rub it across your wrist, you're not gonna get this kind of color payoff. This is really impressive. And you can also see the little gold glitters in there. It's very pretty. Okay, so my thoughts on this palette. All of the mattes that I used were fantastic. They were really buildable, really blendable. They had a lot of pigment, even with just one little application, which I prefer because I'm usually kind of in a hurry when I'm doing my makeup. So I really, really, really loved the mattes. The shimmers were pretty good. Some were more outstanding than others. Glass Heart Hex Flower, and Ghost Whisper I thought were amazing. Whatever formulas or pigments they are using for those are just like one swipe color kind of shimmers. They're amazing. Tainted Love, Hex Flower, Wraith Light, they're not bad shimmers. I'd say they're pretty standard indie quality. It's just that they're not. When you have a palette with like three amazing shimmers that are just like, wow, beautiful, it like it makes the standard shimmers sort of feel less good by comparison, even though they are really good, pretty industry standard indie shimmers. So I'm by no means trying to say those are bad shimmers or they're difficult to work with. They're just like not as stand out as those other three shades that I listed. So all in all, I quality wise think this is really an amazing palette. To have that many good mattes and some pretty good shimmers and some great shimmers is really good. The color story I find kind of interesting. And this is actually like kind of hard for me to say because I tend to love palettes. Like I just reviewed Singe Beauty's new Succulent Dew palette last week. And it has a ton of like on theme colors that are just so, the whole palette is so like cool toned. It's like really greens and blues and purples, like it is on theme. It's beautiful, and I love palettes like that. That's my ideal palette. It looks so cohesive and beautiful. I love it. However, having worked with those two palettes back to back, the Singe Beauty palette and now this Gourmande Girls palette, I have to say that maybe the palette that is less cohesive visually, and it is like arguably this is less visually cohesive, it just doesn't please the same parts of my brain that the Singe Beauty palette does. But arguably it is more useful. I feel like I was able to create already two incredibly different looks with this palette, and I feel like I could do at least a couple more that would be really different, and would stand out from each other, and you might even think like, wow, those looks are coming from the same palette. Whereas with the Singe Beauty palette, even two looks I made that I tried to be different with ended up having the same vibe just because that whole palette has the same vibe. So that thing that makes it feel cohesive is also something that makes it less versatile, and so less useful in a variety of situations. So while I am going to sit here and complain about the fact that this palette is not as visually cohesive as ones that I usually like, I also want to make it really clear that that's probably not a bad thing most of the time. It's probably good for a palette to be more versatile and more usable for a variety of situations. So good on Gourmande Girls for making their palette useful. It just doesn't make my brain light up the way some other palettes do. So those are my thoughts on the Bleeding Hearts palette from Gourmande Girls. If you have anything that you would like to talk about with this palette, and probably some of you have it because this has been out for a little while. It's a fairly new release, but I did not buy this even close to release day. I think it had already been out for like 2 weeks. So some others of you might have gotten this and used it. So tell me, what do you think about it? Do you like the way that it looks visually? Is the color story working for you? Or are you like me and you like things to be like more cohesive and in line with each other? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.